All right, everybody, the very last of the concepts we have to cover here in Chapter 7, Ultra Mega Mega Arrays chapter, is 7.13, the ArrayList class. Now, there's a couple of really important distinctions between an array and an array list. With an array, you'll recall that we can have an array of any data type, right? So we could use primitive data types like integers, doubles, floating point. We could use objects like strings or objects that we create from classes that we define. The array list is just available to objects. So that means you cannot have an array list with doubles, you cannot have an array list with integers, etc. Now, that's not to say that you can't use certain operations later on. We'll see those. If we've got an array list, we can use it as a wrapper class, but that's not for today. So for the remainder of Chapter 7, the important thing here in the very, very beginning to remember about the array list class is that you cannot use it with primitive data types. The next thing to know about an array list is that you do not have to specify its size. So unlike an array that had a finite number of elements in it, an array list automatically expands and contracts as items are added to or subtracting from it. So that gives, a little bit of a usability boost from the array, because with an array you may either run into one of two issues. The first issue is and this is the preferable issue, the first issue is that you build an array that is far too large for the data that you actually have. So I would initialize an array at 200 elements and I only ever end up using 70, right? So now I have 130 data elements that are unused. That's really not the end of the world. The flip side to this is closer to the end of the world. The flip side with an array is if I declare an array of size 200, but really I'm putting in 400 elements, those last 200 that I'm trying to squeeze into there, actually at the 201st element I tried to squeeze in there, you are going to force Java to crash at that point. With the array list, I do not have to worry about how many objects I'm going to add to the list. It's simply going to resize based on that. Third, here, the easiest way to think of an array list is as a stack. Now, the idea of a stack comes up time and time again in programming classes, but I don't know if it's the most or the least elegant way I've ever heard it described, but it's the one that stuck with me. Is think of it as a stack of plates at a buffet, right? So the first stack, or the first rather plate that you put on a stack goes on the bottom. And then you keep putting more plates on top of that stack. So the first place you put down is buffet plate sub 0. The next one you put down there is buffet plate sub 1, then sub 3, sub 4, sub 5, and up you go. The one at the top is whatever number it is the last element in this case, it's an array list of plates. That's kind of the way that Java's built around being able to use that data type. Now, I apologize, I did not tell you the page. This is on page 472. We do have here a new import that we have to worry about. It's java.util.ArrayList. Remember also, I'm running out of batteries, it appears in my pointer. Remember also that you can simplify that with import java.util.wildcard or star, and it's going to fill those in for you. Here it's page 473, creating an array list object that you can see here, array list, and then inside of the less than and the greater than, we have the type of array list that you are going to create, and that's a string. Here we are calling it name list, and name list is how we'll refer to the object moving forward. Equals new array list, and then inside of the less than and greater than is string again. And then following that is the open and the close parentheses, because what that's going to do is call to a constructor for an array list called name list, and it's just going to be an empty constructor there. What I will tell you is the second string, which you cannot see because my pointer has just died. The second string that you see there on the right hand side is no longer technically required. Java, starting with Java 7, which is old now, does what's called inference on that new array list object. It infers from the left hand side, where you have array list string, that you're going to create a new string type array list. So technically speaking, here on the right hand side, I cannot highlight that for you, I apologize. Technically speaking, here on the right hand side, you do not need that second string. You could leave an empty less than, greater than. And actually, if we scroll way down here to the very, very bottom of 7.13, it's called using the diamond operator for type inference. That's exactly what we were talking about there. So here, this will be page 480. You can see on the very top here, that would be what I would refer to as our traditional array list instantiation. Down here, the bottom here, you would see our post Java 7 array list instantiation. Not a huge difference. What I can tell you is the next piece of this video, we will look at populating an array. We will look at the things that you see from 373 on down here. We'll look at adding items to the array list, rather. We'll look at, I clearly need coffee. We'll look at using the enhanced for. We'll look at, I'm going to leave the toString to you guys. What I'll tell you is this is most valuable. The toString method is most valuable when we are looking at just dumping data out. In no way, shape, or form are we ever going to need this for something that faces a user. This is more of a developer consideration, so that I can see an entire class's data just essentially vomited out to me as a string. So this way I can use this in validation, I can use this in error checking, and I can use this in bug tracking to see if all of the data I expect to be populated into my array list was populated into my array list. We'll look at removing an item. And then we'll also look at replacing items, and we will see that in the next part of the video here.